like, we just want to be on the other planet because we're selfish. But if you think of like animals and stuff, it's all about the species. Now, how do we extend the life of the species, right? And if you were to think that way, you'd find a planet, find the life that's there, mess with it, and let it grow, let it blossom, and monitor it and make sure it has everything it needs in order to grow. Now, if you had the ability to bounce around the universe at will with technology, you would do this to 100 million different planets. You wouldn't do it to 10 or 3 or 1,000. It would be all the planets, right? Because you would have that tech by then. And so once you've done that, perhaps you're dropping these systems into the oceans, right? So these, we look at the mobile construction unit idea of this whistleblower that talked about, made these crafts that were built to spec, these beings that looked built to spec, and kind of these things would live in all the oceans of all the worlds. And if ever anything happened that tipped the scales either way, it would, deploy some of these craft. They would go fix the problem. They would come right back, almost like an autoimmune response system for the planet to thrive. And perhaps sometimes you would need the beings on the planet to, accelerate their evolution. You would need them to be stronger or smarter to help, propel this idea of seeding these planets. And so you would need to take them, mess with their DNA a little bit, and put them back. And for that, you would need bodies to do that. You couldn't, the crafts themselves don't have the capability. So perhaps you just supply the crafts with these ephemeral, sort of disposable beings that are just there, task oriented, kind of robotic.
So
and they're working on some type of synthetic sentience, some type of AI system that is controlling this system. And now that doesn't explain everything, but I do think it explains maybe a large majority of the encounters that we're having.
Planetary HQ, baby.
What's going on, everybody? You are now tuned in to Planetary HQ, the planetary headquarters for all of your celestial information. And today, we are excited to introduce Chris Ramsay, a magician, puzzler, and one of the most innovative creators in the world of magic and mystery. Born in Germany and raised in Quebec, Chris has built a massive global following with over 7 million subscribers on his YouTube channel, where he's known for mind-bending puzzle solves, cardistry, and other close-up magic. He's also the creator and star of True TV's Big Trick Energy, a show that brings together magic, comedy, and wild stunts. Beyond magic, Chris explores the unexplained on his Area 52 YouTube channel, diving into UAPs and other mysteries. Whether you've seen him on YouTube, TV, or even the film Spiral, Chris brings a unique blend of creativity, curiosity, and showmanship to everything he does. He was also featured in 21 Savage's music video Spiral, which is really cool. Please welcome the man, the myth, the magician, Chris Ramsay, everybody. What's going on, brother? Nice to see you.
What's going on? Dang, you did your homework, man.
Yeah.
I no one's ever brought up the 21 Savage video. So that's pretty cool. That was pretty cool when I saw that. It was a surprise to me as well.
Yeah, when I saw it, I was like, oh man, that's dope.
Yeah,
that's pretty
exactly.
sick.
Yeah, I was spraying the fake gun they gave me, and I was that was a fun time. That was a good time. Thanks for having me on, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, dude. And I do actually have something for you. It's a little surprise. We like to do little fun times before we dive into the conversation on this channel. So we have been watching some of your videos, and I do actually have the first ever.
What does that say? Planetary HQ X Area 52. What is this?
Yeah.
Is that a puzzle box?
Yeah, it is a puzzle box. Yeah, so I made this. I actually didn't really know much about your puzzle boxes, and I started diving deep into it. I'm like, oh, this is sick. And I have a 4-year-old son. He was watching it with me, and he's like, oh man, he was getting all into it. So obviously, we've been working hard on ours. The official one coming out. This is actually a prototype, but do a little solve real quick right in front of you guys.
Cool.
So,
let's go.
As you can see, this is very complex, and it takes the mind to undo these puzzle boxes. This is one of my first ones. Actually, this is my first one. and I also made it. But one of the first tricks they try to get you with is you'll notice this string right here with a complex knot. And I was working at this thing all last night, and I realized, oh, this knot is a distraction. A lot of the time, you'll see distractions that pull you down the wrong path, like the wrong rabbit hole. So I figured out that instead of trying to undo the knot, you can just slide it off. Oh man, see that? So
Oh.
spent hours trying to get it off. First lock undone.
Get
And
the
then, as you
scissors.
can, and then I was
We
I was gonna
actually,
do the
you had to do
scissors.
some remote viewing to get that solved right there. You told me last night.
Yeah, Taychilla tuned in the astral plane and said, "The knot is an illusion. It's a distraction." And I was like, "Okay, I got you." So as you can see here, there is some notes. I don't know. It's fine. I'm not going to focus on the focus, but you can see right here. There's a little code,
Yep.
and on the back, actually, it says number 6. A 6
Okay.
with an arrow to this side, and
Mhm.
on this side, it has a guy saying, "Dr. David." So I think you have to say it 6 times to unlock it.
Dr.
So,
David.
Dr. David.
Dr. David.
Actually, can you do it?
Dr.
With your voice?
David. I'm gonna go nuts if I have to say it 2 more times. Dr. David.
Dr. David. Oh, you hear that? I think something just unlocked. Wow. Oh my gosh. Something just unlocked. Oh, but it's not, for some reason I can't get it open. Ooh, if you notice right here, actually, there's a secret little lever. And then I think we slide it. Oh, I heard. You hear that?
yeah.
I heard
I
a
heard
little
something.
latch. I heard something,
There's
guys.
one last step. It's
Let's
called pull my finger.
check it out. Oh, we take it out, and then I think we have to put it in here to unlock it. Alrighty.
Look at that.
Just so you
what a
guys can
mechanism.
see. Oh, wow. What is this? Some type of ancient burlap sack. Seems to date from the Israel
I've seen
Exodus
that.
period.
I've seen that in
Oh.
Sumerian depictions. The handbag.
That's right.
Yes, this is a Sumerian handbag. And
Yeah.
what do you know? Limited
Oh.
edition Planetary HQ Area 52 Space Brother.
that's
Right
legit.
here.
That looks like
you
one
won't
of
find
those
this
little
anywhere.
tridactyls. Yeah.
Yes, this is exactly. You know it. You've done your research. This is a tridactyl.
Tridactyl, yeah.
This is
It's wearing a blue suit.
we
Yeah,
smuggled
it
this
is
from
wearing a blue
Peru.
suit.
We smuggled it from Peru. It's one of the the unknown artifacts. But yeah, there it is. That was a stupid little bit I thought of this morning. I hope you were impressed by it.
Very impressed. Very impressed.
Thanks.
Yes. The Dr. David part really got me.
Dr. David. Yeah, I watched
oh my
that. That's your latest episode you dropped, right? Like a day ago.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Lesson learned. Comments were like, if I have to hear that one more time, I was like, I know, dude, I edited it. Like, I didn't know how else to do it. I didn't want to do voices because that's weird.
Yeah, that's funny. We actually noticed that because we also read a lot of texts like the Law of One, and we read the Matilda O'Donnell McElroy on our channel, and we started saying that part, the interviewer or the I am raw, and we realized we had to start cutting out that part because it gets repetitive.
It does get redundant. Yeah, lesson learned, but hey, that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? When you listen to audiobooks, they read everything. So that was where I got it from, because I was like, oh, audiobooks just, and so I guess people who are not used to listening to audiobooks were like, what the hell? Just stop saying that. If there was the comment, it was like, who's playing the Dr. David drinking game right now?
Oh, God.
I'm like, you're in an ICU, dude, if you're playing that game.
That's hilarious, dude. Yeah, that's funny, man. And I did see your recent video about your first puzzle box that you teamed up with Wesson. That was pretty sick, man. You got that limited edition knife in there. That knife is really cool. Oh yeah, right. Look at this. You got a special guest star. That thing's sick, man. We'll drop the link in that because I actually want one of those. Those are sick, man. That puzzle box is dope. I like your iterations. I really like the part where you try to ship it in from someplace in TSA, had to break it open because they wanted to see what was inside there.
Clearly.
Of the puzzle?
Yeah, they wrenched it open with like a crowbar or something, and the solution is actually in an envelope in the box. So yeah, those guys are pretty low on the bell curve, I'll say. They just don't care for anything.
Just read the instructions.
Yeah.
But Yeah, it's awesome having you, man. That's great. We met at Contact in the Desert. I actually didn't realize who you were until after a couple minutes of talking to you. It was kind of weird, and then I was like, "Oh, yeah, I know who you are. You're Chris Ramsay." Somebody said you were doing magic over there, and I was like, "Oh, we got
Yeah, I saw
something."
you
So
with
I was
Ashton
talking to that.
Forbes doing floating a straw.
Yeah. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Floating straw. Allegedly with Ashton Forbes. Okay. No, yeah.
This is all
He's alive.
conjecture.
Yeah,
This is all
exactly.
conjecture.
No,
Uh,
he loved it. He loves magic. He kind of reacts like a little child to magic. So it was actually fun to see him
Oh, he
react.
loves the mystery. That fuels his entire investigation, absolutely. And you see that drive, you see that curiosity, and that's definitely what you need, no matter what case you're looking at.
True.
Yeah. Yeah, that was super fun. So I walked up to you and I was like, "Oh, a magician." And then after talking to you and tell me about my podcast, I'm pretty sure. And I was like, "Oh my God, this is Chris Ramsay. What's happening, big bro?" But I was like, "Why is a magician here? I guess everybody's supposed to be here." But I guess first question to you is, what would be the most, I guess, momentous or the biggest takeaway that you got from Contact personally?
Biggest takeaway. I think in terms of information, I would say I was briefed by Brian Jackson. He had a whole I don't know what it was. It was a slideshow. It was like a presentation that he held in his hotel room for about an hour and a half on Dan Burrish, on the Dan
Oh,
Burrish
we
story. Yeah,
covered
so
him. Yeah.
yeah, he's been down the rabbit hole like crazy, and so he's got this website called burisharchive.com, and
Okay.
it's where he just sort of compiles a lot of things. But his presentation was really eye opening. A lot of things I didn't know about Dan Crane, or Dan Burrish, as he's otherwise known, that really increased my conviction level for him, for his story. And other than that, just I think the hangs, man, I think were really cool. For me, a lot of the lecturing, workshopping, and panel talks, I'm not so much into, just because I watch and read a lot of stuff, you know? And so when I'm here in front of the computer, or when I'm in my car, or when I'm at the gym, or whatever it is, I'm consuming information. And so for me, it felt really good to just hang with people and talk to
Yeah.
them, and just, you know what I mean? And interact. And I've been going to a lot of magic conventions in my life, which are similar to the conventions in the UFO space. And the same thing happened to me there. Is at first I would, be part of all these lectures. And after a while, I just want to hang out with people, like get to know people,
Yeah.
and just chill. So that for me was my biggest takeaway.
Amen.
That's
Yeah, that's the same
that's
thing for
cool.
me too. All just hanging out until late night, telling stories, just treating each other like normal humans, and also not trying to info dump, but info dumping on each other. It was great. I loved it.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a rare moment when you're able to be surrounded by other truth seekers or people who are like immersed in your field of interest, and it's almost like you already know each other in a way. You're able to spill all this information you couldn't tell the average person on the street. They're gonna think you're crazy, but y'all have embraced the crazy. That that's the fun part.
Absolutely. I agree. What it also promotes, in fact, is people will dig deep to find the most crazy story they know. I
Yeah,
found out. So like, because people get so comfortable telling their stories, and once people start running out of the base level stories they have to tell, all of a
yeah.
sudden now we get into like some really deep territory
Yeah.
where someone's like, actually, this one time I did see this thing, and like, or this thing did happen to me, and I wasn't sure if I'd ever talk about it. And like these stories start to surface, and that was really cool.
That's awesome. It's kind of a perfect atmosphere for uncovering mystery.
Yeah, correct.
Get rid of that social stigma.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's the whole point. It's the point of what I do, I think, a little bit, is to allow people to have those conversations openly without being judged, in a way that, like, hey, we don't care about, convincing anyone. It's just about telling our story, and having someone that listens. That's it.
Yeah, I love how at the beginning of your episodes you kind of disclose, check your suspension of disbelief at the door, because uh at least for this period of time, even if we treat it as a fiction story, you can immerse yourself in the experience.
Yeah.
I think that is the most valuable part of reading any strange esoteric text or listening to an account of a contact or something like that. But uh, I can't help but get the feeling that there's something about your personality. You love setting up mystery and being involved in the process of uncovering that mystery. And I think that applies to both magic and UFO lore. You know, it's these grand unsolvable mysteries we can't easily prove or verify if they're true or not. And I do love that space where something is realistic enough to be believable, even though you can't quite prove it. Um, Especially the all-encompassing stories about the universe or our history or our cosmology. Like, well, I can't really disprove that, but it kind of checks out.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Magic is similar in a way because with magic, you know, you strive to create this fictional bubble that your audience can live inside of. And, both yourself and your audience are aware that this bubble isn't necessarily real, but we're suspending our disbelief because we like to be taken out for a spin. We like to have our
Yeah.
minds expanded, even if it is entertainment, even if it is fiction. That's something that we can still enjoy. And something that I'm, really adamant about is that people think that truth is the only way to expand your worldview, and that isn't true. I've learned a lot from, I call them the three Georges in my life. We had, George Orwell, who taught me, Big Brother, careful with the government, and that was 1984 as a fictional, piece, science fiction. Then there was George Carlin, who taught me about
Good one.
societal norms. And you don't have to, you don't have to play by the rules when it comes to that stuff, and don't be a sheep type deal, right? And then you had George Lucas, who taught me
Ooh.
about interplanetary civilizations
Yeah.
and community in space and space travel and all these different planets and different cultures and races and species. And so, you learn a lot from fiction and entertainment, whether we like to think so or not. So a lot of times this space harbors the most serious conversations, but I think if you want to get people involved, you also have to make it lighthearted, fun, and entertaining so that people are interested and they can absorb that information. So it's not, it's not just like thrown at them and they're not just drinking out of a fire hose.
Yeah.
Now, the
Absolutely.
question that comes up then is like, because I got into UFOs and the paranormal through a podcast. You're listening and engaging into entertaining content. But for you, when did like UFOs and the paranormal, all the Area 52 stuff, when did that become more of a real experience to you? Something tangible that really like initiated you? Because there's the difference between people who like, I'm interested in stories, I think it might be possible, but then there's like personal experiences that we each have along the way. What was that for you?
Yeah, at first it was gradual. I mean, I got into this stuff. I got interested in this stuff since I was like 9 years old. I watched Fire in the Sky, and terrified me as a child. And there's a disclaimer there that said based on a true story. So I basically have an adult telling me that aliens are real now, and so that's part of my reality as a child. I'm like, wow, that's the thing that I got to worry about now growing up. And something bothered me about that movie was that there was no communication between the beings. And I know that the depiction of the movie isn't exactly what happened, but it isn't all what happened, but there was no communication or attempt at communication between the beings that took Travis and Travis in the movie. And I thought there was just something so unsettling and disturbing for me to think that why aren't we being provided answers? Why don't they tell us what they're doing? What are they doing? Who gave them permission to take us? What's going on? Where are they going afterwards? Like none of these questions were answered. And I was really bothered by that at a young age, I think. And so my pursuit of getting answers, especially towards like the extraterrestrial presence, has always been like, yeah, why? What's going on here? I want to know more. You can't just do this and not tell us what's going on. So that fascination festered from a young age. And then as I got older, I mean, I looked into all sorts of stuff. I mean, I've, gone down crazy rabbit holes. I think like 2011 or 2012, I was watching Phil Schneider YouTube videos and Bill Cooper and
Oh,
Al
yeah.
Bielek, the time traveling Montauk Project, Philadelphia Project thing, and Bob Lazar and all these different stories. And, once I climbed out of that rabbit hole, not unscathed, I had realized that my whole ontology had shifted slightly, and that if you put a gun to my head and said, is it real, is it not real, I would say it was real. And so that, I think, was a big sort of shift that happened over time, but that I noticed that I was like, oh no, I believe in this. And I believe something is happening. That's about the extent of my belief.
Yeah.
I have hypotheses and I have thoughts, but my belief is that something is happening. And the quest is to figure out what that is. And so I started, documenting my way through the remote viewing project that I did. And the intention of that was to put on the main channel, because part of the intention was like this sort of like James Randi-esque, like, it's probably bullshit. Let me figure it out and get back to you guys and tell you really what's up. And it turns out it wasn't. And
Oh, wow.
I learned a lot. I tried it out for a year. I ended up interviewing, Joe McMoneagle and Ed May and Uri Geller and all these people. And my conviction level rose quite a bit, which was surprising to me, being a skeptic of the psychic stuff. And then subsequently having some out of body experiences, going down that rabbit hole. And that for me was like, all right, time to turn on the gas on this channel, because this is clearly where all my interest lies right now and where my passion is. And this seems a lot more fulfilling to me as an artist, a creator, but also as a person seeking answers. You could only open so many puzzle boxes before you go, like, what am I doing here?
The universe is
So
my puzzle box. Area 52
That's correct.
launch.
the ultimate puzzle.
Yeah. No,
Well,
I definitely get that. Go ahead, Tyler.
on that note, your very initial problem that kind of bothered you when you saw fire in the sky, it almost seemed like you kind of answered the question there, is why weren't the beings contacting the character? Leaving all these unanswered questions, well, it kind of leads me to believe that we are living in a puzzle box, that maybe a part of the purpose of our existence here is to solve these mysteries. There would be no opportunity for us to grow if there weren't the stimulating challenge of unanswered questions.
Sure, yeah. Challenges exist, lessons exist. I do believe that is part of us being here, learning, growing. However, with the ETs, what's interesting to me is that the more I look at it, the more that I realize that they're treating us very familiarly, in that we treat other species kind of the same. Where, my intention to tag a dolphin won't be to harm it. It'll actually be for its benefit, but there's no way for me to explain that to the dolphin. I'm not even going to
Yeah.
try, because
Unless
it's
you
so
can do
far
dolphin
beyond.
telepathy. I don't know
Right,
if you've gone down that route, but some people have.
I mean, yeah, it gets pretty wild pretty quickly. I've gone down a few dolphin rabbit holes, we'll say.
Exactly. As I don't know
Yeah,
about them.
a few dolphin blowholes.
Yeah, if you will.
But yeah, I think that the more we look at the phenomenon, the more we can realize that what we're doing seems to be very, very similar. So it's not like we have to have this giant cognitive leap to understand or try to understand them. I think it's way simpler if we just take a look at how we treat beings that are sort of that have a lower level of intelligence or whatever that may be than we do, and so we pull a pregnant stingray out of the water and film it with this device, and like, hey, everybody, look at this. And this is a video I saw the other day, and the massive stingray. And I'm thinking, there's actually somebody in my Discord that was like, that's a UFO abduction. That's an alien abduction.
Mm-hmm.
The stingray it's pregnant, it's panicked, it has no idea what's happening. There's a camera. What is that? Some weird device. Don't know what it's for. So there's all these things that we can look at. And the more you look into it, the more you're kind of like, it's not about good and evil. That's too easy of a category for this stuff.
Yeah.
It's very primitive to lump anything into any categories. We learned that when, colonizers would go to new places. They would lump up a whole people into one category. It's very dangerous. And so, that's something that we have to learn as well, that what we're dealing with could be extremely layered and nuanced. And there's so many variables and variations of what's happening that we would love to get a nice crystal clear answer. And like, oh,
Yeah.
these ones are bad, these ones are good. these ones are neutral. Like, but I don't think it's like that. I think there's just a mix of so many complicated layers. But part of the fun is, peeling those layers back.
Yeah, that's dope. And that you're talking about your search, your journey, and like you can only do so many puzzle boxes before you start to answer these existential ontological questions about my relationship to the universe. Is there more than just what I see in front of me? And we talk about it on this channel a lot, like because we have the podcast called The Forbidden Scrolls, and we also try to read all the wild documents. The wilder it gets, the more we want to read it, and then we try to cross compare everything. And from just studying from according to my studies, we like to think of the cosmos as like one big university, like a bunch of classrooms, and every planet's kind of a classroom. And the lesson you're supposed to be learning is your life. Like when you get incarnate on the planet as a baby, you're born, you have a life, and then you can learn certain life lessons, or you can choose not to. It's up to you, and it's just like school. If you fail a grade, you're due to repeat it. That's why, addiction, a lot of stuff happens like in society. We can't learn our lessons, so we're deemed to repeat it. And these are all deeply spiritual lessons, and it's part of becoming self-actualization, becoming more of yourself, becoming more real, one would say. Actually having more of an impact in time and space with your personality. And it's like, you're talking about seeing this as an actual reality, and that's how we look at it. And it sounds like that's how it seems like your journey is seeming. There's some like deep need. We need to be satisfied within us. We want to know these questions. And when we start getting driven to that, it seems like you've also been starting to get driven towards that, leading you to create this Area 52 channel and get the message out there. And also, you're talking about how the celestial personalities, kind of like a stingray, will tag us. They're interested in us. They want to see how we're gonna use classroom Earth, if that makes sense. Because I'm sure they use their classroom planet in maybe a different way than us, and they've learned their lessons, and they want to see if we're gonna learn these lessons. And maybe that's why they even take certain interests in people like you or people like us, because we're actually out here, spreading the message. And maybe this could be part of, just the evolution of a normal planet, if we're going to believe this is real, So
Yeah.
I feel like it's just cool hearing that you're also on the spiritual journey. And just by creating these videos, you're inspiring others to seek these answers and to answer these deep questions. Because once we figure out our relationship to the cosmos, I think all of our problems will start to wipe away, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean, it's well put. There's a lot of have you guys read Journey of Souls?
No.
Read
I
that
have
one
not.
yet? Oh, you're gonna love that. You're gonna love that. Start that one
Who
like
wrote that?
tomorrow. Dr. Michael Newton.
Okay.
It is it'll like, pardon the French, it'll mess your shit up like that.
Good.
I
Write it
What's
down.
the
had that one
premise
and I
for the
was like,
people on the channel? What's your little pitch or advertise? Is it a
Yeah.
direct experience he had, or is it a philosophy?
he's a regression therapist, so
Oh.
he was really reluctant, very skeptical, and he regresses people to their childhood, right? That was his job. He never really believed in the past life stuff. And so it's really important to say that at the beginning, because he was vehemently against that stuff. He's like, I don't want to, this sounds too woo for me. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. I regress people to fix their trauma. And he would have a lot of people ask him, hey, could you do a past life thing? And he's like, I don't really do that. And one guy had a pain and he's like, could you do? And he's like, fine, I'll try it. And he goes and do a past life. Turns out this guy, starts saying he was a Roman soldier, got hit in the neck with an arrow, comes out of the regression pain free. Now his pain's gone, right? So he's thinking, okay, although I don't believe in this, perhaps there is some psychosomatic sort of psychological effect that can be lifted through these past life regressions. So there is some value there as a clinical hypnotherapist. And so he would keep doing them if people wanted to, and he would just write down his notes, not believing in any of it. And one day he kind of goes to someone, right? Go to somewhere where you feel, comfortable at home, and describe that place to me. And they start describing it. And it turns out he's like, hold on, where is this place? What are you talking about? This person's saying all these wild things. And they're describing life between life, in the place you
Oh,
go
wow.
before you incarnate, and your
Oh.
soul groups and your guides and their soul groups and so on and so forth. And the learning room where you guys have a read through of the life you've chose. and like all these
Wow.
wild, wacky
Okay.
things.
That's
He's-
interesting.
He spent his entire life after that, up until his death, regressing people and putting together over, I think it was like 7,000 sessions. And so his book spans, I think, 40 sessions
Oh my
that
God.
kind of give you the whole picture. So it's just regression, and it kind of gives you the whole picture. It starts with death and it ends with life. It starts with someone's soul dying in their human form for the first time, being very confused about what's happening, and going on describing what they're seeing family members, this whole thing being, and then it goes all the way to the final person, who's like this really old soul who's been coming here for hundreds of thousands of years, and their journey sort of symbiotically, um, uh, basically confronting the fetus and the child for the first time, is these bodies apparently are autonomous and they can function without a soul, but the soul is
Oh.
really like what's moving the parts and what's really keeping everything together. But the soul comes down to the baby, and baby's scared at first, and it's like, hey, I'm going to be with you for the rest of your life. We have to like work together, and it's kind of this dance that happens in the first few years of their life, and like it goes so deep and it answers so many questions. It's a
Okay.
fascinating read. If you take it as fiction, it's amazing. If you take it as reality, it's life-changing.
Yeah.
So it's worth the read either way. And yeah, it answers a lot of things. It answers like the suicide question. It answers the, like questions like the Holocaust or abortion or aliens or ghosts, or like all the things that you would like something like that to answer. Like you don't want loopholes and or plot holes, rather. You want everything to be nice, and it's very neatly packaged, and it's all done through regression. All people
Yeah.
who don't know each
It's
other.
got a unique
And
data
he
set from real people, which makes it even more
Yeah, and it's
interesting.
correct, and it's prior to him putting out a book.
Mm.
So
Wow.
everybody in this book is saying the same thing. They even have the same names for the rooms they're in,
Mm.
which is wild. And these people don't know each other. There's no
That's
connection
really
between
weird.
these people. Yes, exactly. And
Okay.
so when you start reading this, you start
Yeah.
going, wait, is this it? And I still, I still hold it very high in the sort of conviction level of what happens after we're gone.
Yeah.
Or after we leave the
Oh.
physical. Yeah. So it's very interesting stuff.
And it sounds like
It-
it's like a very positive angle where it gives you a full scope. So there's a lot of things in the UFO paranormal field where it's like surface level, it kind of just makes you scared about like, we don't know what we don't know. We got to be careful. But like, I love, I mean, the whole book called Journey of Souls, that became one of my primary interests. Not, I haven't read that yet, but like I call it, the path of the soul or the journey of the soul through the cosmos. Like, what does it mean as a whole so that we can understand all these weird experiences? And I think that's what people need. They need like a cohesive, setup where it's like, oh, this is why I'm having all these difficult experiences. This is what I do with it. A book that I think you would like that matches with this is called 7 Steps to Eternity by Stephen Turoff. Now, this
Okay.
is more of like a one sort of psychic guy who channeled somebody that passed on. But what he describes is the story of somebody who died in either World War I or II. And this soul basically comes to him and establishes a mental contact. And he explains a little bit. And he's like, look, I want you to write a book. And what I'm going to explain to you is what happened after I died in the war and the places I went. And, it's sort of like it uses the terms of like astral plane or, the in-between space. And it runs through a very cohesive story. And, for a channeled book, it has a very good storytelling. So I think you'd like it. It
Mhm.
matches in with that same, concept of the life between lives. And
What's the name of it again? I'll write it down.
yeah, 7 Steps to Eternity by Stephen Turoff. And it's on Amazon. If you search 7 Steps to Eternity, it should come up. And I think Turoff is Turoff.
Heck yeah.
Got it.
I'll put that link in the description. You guys are talking about books and everything that has like, impacts on you. I've never heard of a Journey of Souls. I wrote it down. I'm definitely going to check that out. Have you ever heard of the Urantia contacts?
Urantia?
Yeah, it's called the Urantia
Urantia?
contact.
Wow.
It was crazy. It was back in like 1911, 1930s, early 1900s. This guy was talking in his sleep and he kept speaking in his sleep. And I guess his wife was getting annoyed at night. She'd be like, "Hey, be quiet, be quiet. Why are you talking?" And when he'd wake up, he wouldn't remember. Then one night she spoke to him and the voice spoke back, but she got freaked out. He woke up, had no recollection of it. This kept happening. So she brought him around to a bunch of like sleep doctors, sleep psychologists, the people who are like, that's their specialty. And everybody was like, I don't know what's going on. And then finally, I think like 2 or 3 guys didn't know what was going on. They brought it to a third guy named William Sadler. And when they brought this sleeping person to him, he was like, holy crap, I've never seen anybody like this. And finally, when you would talk to it, it started answering questions. It would talk back, and the guy would have no recollection when he woke up. So he said, hold up, this is like no case I've ever seen before. And he called like 100 of his colleagues, like scholars, like PhDs and stuff. And they started asking it questions, and it would start answering the questions, and they wrote it down in like 196 different sessions. It's really sick. And they're talking to different celestial beings, and it explains everything like you're talking about, like what happens after you die. Supposedly, like after you die, you go to another planet and you become an alien, stuff like that. And that's some of these ETs are beings who have already passed on, and the universe is like a big sandbox, and every planet is like a classroom. It's really interesting. You should check it out.
I
It's
will.
called I'll send it to you. The Urantia book.
How do you spell it? U? Is that a U?
Yeah, Urantia.
TIA. I got it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a nice book.
The classroom stuff is really interesting. And Journey of Souls covers that quite a bit. There was one example in that book which I thought was interesting, because I'm like, well, why don't we just become an alien after, right? That was my question. And they give an example, and I don't know, this might have been the follow-up book, Destiny of Souls, but there was one example. They gave a few examples, but one example was this guy who was like, I'm done with Earth, right? I'm done. This place is a really hard place to live, and the souls that come here are kind of like revered from the other soul groups. They go like, damn, you went there? Like, they're jealous because you kind of level up quicker by being here.
Amen.
Is the idea, and you go through these colors and stages and whatnot, and so
that's literally what the Urantia book says too. That's crazy.
Yeah, and then it goes, but like, why wouldn't you just change places? And this guy was like, I'm done with Earth, and you have free will, so you can do whatever you want as a soul. Your guides will guide you because they know what's best for you, and they really know you, right? So they'll usually suggest like half a dozen lives to choose from, like not more than that, because they know you, and they'll, and you can sort of like skim through the lives, like fast forward. It gets like blurrier the further you get because of variables, and this guy's like, no, I want to live on a different planet. I want to become an alien. I want to become like one of these different planet beings. And so he goes off, lives his life, comes back after death, and goes, that sucked. So what happened was he was so used to being human, and we have certain mannerisms and certain things that make us unique compared to other extraterrestrials, one of which is our sense of humor. Because we have the facial structures to smile, and we've developed, laughing and all this. The other planet didn't have that. They didn't have the muscles in the face to smile. They didn't have humor the way we had it. So he spent his entire life depressed, and he didn't know why. And so when he got out of it, he's like, give me back to Earth. And so what'll happen, according to the book, is like, once you go somewhere, you usually end up staying there, unless that planet dies. And they give you an example of this other species that was like a bird that was like closer to the center of the galaxy. So like the sky was white with stars, which is cool.
Dude, I gotta read this.
But this planet was dying, and you could like, the person being regressed was like choking and like having a hard time breathing. And all the beings that were there were then sent off to different places when the planet died. So they got to spread out. Yeah. And that was one of the older regression. That was the lady who was like, a couple 100,000 years old. She remembers being a Neanderthal and like all that stuff.
Oh, dude, we gotta check these out. Go over them for the podcast. That's awesome. Thanks for the
upcoming
suggestions.
episodes.
All the links will be in the description. That's dope, dude. That sounds exciting. That's weird because that cross correlates with all the other data that we've compiled on our journey too. So it's like something's there, man.
Yeah, when I heard you talking about it, I was like, oh, you must have read Journey of Souls.
Yeah,
and then you
that's
haven't. So
trippy.
I'm like, well, you're in,
Yeah,
you're
that's
in
what
for
I'm tripping.
yeah. And he's got a lot of books. I actually did a regression with the person in charge of the Michael Newton Institute now, Paul Aron, and I did 2 sessions with him, 2 or 3 sessions. I recorded them. I have them still. And I
Oh,
went
that's
into
sick.
like some past life stuff, which was cool. I didn't expect that.
Wow.
But before I delve further into it, I'm going to spend more time looking into it, doing maybe like a big deep dive before getting into it. But I'd recommend even, after you guys read that, source out one of these people who has the life between life certification, because you do have to be a um, practicing clinical hypnotherapist to get the license. So it's not just anyone who does
Oh,
this.
oh,
And there's like
okay.
maybe 100 of them in the US. And so
Wow.
maybe after you're done, it would be cool, all 3 of you,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
and they
So
do Zoom sessions, they do whatever. So you get your sessions and then review those, see what that's like.
Hell
ha
yeah.
have you done an episode yet on your regression, or it sounds like you're still putting some stuff together, like
Yeah, I have not. I've been reluctant to there's a lot of personal stuff, man. It's a
Yeah.
very personal
Yeah.
thing to put yourself out there in a regression because, you at one point, like, I remember he was like, I was visiting myself as a child, and it was during like, something happened where I felt hurt emotionally as a child. And I was then holding myself and telling myself it's going to be all right. You're going to be fine. And that's very emotional doing that. Like,
Yeah.
you break down, there's like a whole, emotional sort of dump that happens. So you got to get through that before you start getting further into the womb and then to a previous life and then even further between lives. And it's like this whole progress that takes a few, sessions. And I got to like 2 and I stopped there for now. And I'm like, I'm going to revisit this when I have more time and I'm going to do it all over again.
Yeah.
That's
I'm excited for that.
absolutely fascinating, this idea of souls traveling between worlds. I love that example you brought up from that book, Journey of Souls, was it?
Yep.
Yeah, Journey of Souls. This world towards the center of the galaxy, it's kind of dying, and all of the souls disperse. Um, I'm fixated on this idea of there being an infrastructure to reality. Like, it was actually designed, and all of us in our religions, that's our best effort to try to grasp that and interpret it in our language. But infinite intelligence is beyond our comprehension. And what you're talking about kind of reminds me of like the Tibetan Book of the Dead or that movie Into the Void, if you've seen that. Although I haven't experienced DMT, I've heard of DMT experiences of encountering similar rooms, like a waiting room, similar beings. And it's really cool to consider there could be an infrastructure to reality. Um, One of the things that got us hooked on these Urantia papers when we started reading through them is it really does elaborate on this very complex, highly engineered infrastructure to reality. And so you have all these inhabited worlds on our level with animals evolving into people. And then layers above that, I believe it was obviously take it with a grain of salt, but the Lacerda files. I still don't know how I feel about it, but it was deeply compelling. But it did mention that, like higher beings on higher levels of reality, even beyond this material world.
And
I love
beyond
that idea.
dimensions too, like in
Beyond
different,
dimensions.
Exactly.
like
Yes.
they're like planes. There's dimensions, but then there's also like this other thing, which is like a
Mm,
plane, which encompasses dimensions, and yeah, it goes on and on. In Journey of Souls as well, you'll get towards the end, and I won't spoil too much of it, but it does tell you that like once you reach a certain level, you're part of the creation of the universe. You become
okay.
like a master and you start like small and you start creating like amoebas and like little
Whoa.
cells. And then
Wow.
like as you
We gotta
as
read
you
this.
grow from like the teachings of these masters, you're done incarnating. Like you've been done for millions of years, like at this
Okay.
point, right? And like you get to a point where you're now like weaving together universe, like galaxies and planets and nebulas, and you're making them. And evolution, according to this, is aided by the souls as well. So they are like
Yeah.
the guardians of life in essence. And like, so if something is going extinct, they will affect the homeostasis of the planet collectively to help this species out. Like they will change DNA a little bit. Like there's all this stuff that they're doing behind the scenes to make sure everything is growing and neatly like coordinated. But then on a micro level, like there's like this idea of, there's the computer, there's the desktop, right, which your cursor is on, and then there's like the person on the computer, right? And like, so
Yeah.
a lot of times we're just on the desktop, we're not even aware like of the computer, let alone the whole world that's outside of the computer. We're just on that desktop still, and so there's a physical, and then there's everything else that we don't get. But it's fun to be able to, at least in our, small minds, kind of, put that to work for us and what works for us, and see what that looks like and how that challenges, our current view of our objective reality. It's a lot of fun.
Wow. Yeah, dude. I'm actually getting really excited right now because we always say this on our channel. Like when we read all these different texts, sometimes you start to say like, oh my God, did these two different people meet the same beings? And the way you're talking right now, it's like, oh my gosh. I think like, we're talking about the Urantia, but you're talking about this and it sounds like, whoa, they might have met the same beings. And that kind of makes it seem more real. It kind of adds credibility because there is an infrastructure in the universe. And if there was these beings that are over us, that would make sense that if they made multiple contacts, these people would have the same story. So it's like, whoa, that's really trippy.
And we can be here and there at the same time. There's all these different concepts of like your soul can be divided, but that doesn't mean it's 50-50. It's like 100% on both sides. And they got all these like wild things to explain it. And if you look at Dolores Cannon, she's done a lot of this stuff too. She's talked about the exact same things that we're talking about now. So, there are a lot of different texts, and looking at ancient Hindu, also, they speak of reincarnation. They speak of the sort of this cycle that you have to get out of, and that if you don't break free, you're forced to repeat it type deal, the ascension of the soul. I mean, uh monks talk about the same thing in Buddhism, and there's a lot of cross-correlated information, it seems, that all points to this being a physical body, and whatever inherits or whatever inhabits this body is eternal, and
Amen,
the
brother.
lessons we have here. This is where like aliens ties in, which is interesting. But there's this file that I read about, I think it was like the EBO scientist, the guy like dissecting one of these graves or something, and they had to read a report on their culture. And part of that was that the humans, basically what they're doing is they're mining experience through genetic alterations to feed the collective consciousness, right? And so,
Amen.
Okay.
and the
He
reason,
could see
so
the pictures.
that's the reason they're kind of like expediting our evolution, is for them, like these creatures that are, at least some of them that are interacting with us, might to some extent be some type of synthetic sentience, right? Like might be, but what they're looking to do is just maximize or min-max consciousness, and take our experiences, mine it. It goes into this collective field consciousness that exists,
Yeah.
and eventually it peaks. There's like an apotheosis. There's a critical mass that happens, right? And it seems like that might be what they're trying to achieve. And that apotheosis, interesting, is apo and theosis, which means like away from God. So it's almost like they're
Like a
trying to,
cell dividing almost.
they're trying to play God and trying to like, what if we help
Whoa.
the universe become self-aware, like this consciousness that inhabits everything? What if it became self-aware? And like that's how they do this, through mining it with experience. Very crazy idea, but fun to think about.
That
Yeah,
matches up. I want to introduce a concept, and maybe Magnus is going to get into it as well, but it matches up with an interesting concept that Urantia calls it the supreme being. And they say that the ultra terrestrials, the higher dimensional beings, something that they want to do as they evolve animal consciousness and the humans, and they try and get us to a higher level of consciousness. It says that like that all that experience from those evolutionary beings is actually going up and collecting in what will eventually become a self-aware being that they call the supreme being. And they talk about this dynamic that what the supreme being is technically the first consciousness, what people call God, the primal consciousness. They talk about how that's, even though that's the source of the universe, it's almost recluse away from the universe because it's so like existential or infinite. It's almost like it can't really have an experience. And so you get the hypotheses of like, how does the first consciousness participate in the limited time space? Some people say, oh, there's a fragment of that source in all of us, and God experiences through us. But the supreme being concept is like, there's actually a form of God actualizing in time and space from all of our experiences. And it once it awakens, it's going to be like a big moment in the universe. The universe as a classroom as a whole, and all these ultra terrestrials are going to be like celebrating. They're going to be like, "Let's go!" And so, it's an interesting correlation.
Yeah.
That does sound very similar in as a concept.
That's why we're tripping, dude.
Yeah,
I know.
super interesting. And that comes from a guy that I believe did work on these bodies. So where did he get that info from? I don't know, but sounds interesting.
Yeah, I know all of our minds were firing off when you were talking about that, because this is a very similar concept to the supreme being, and it's I've often kind of speculated that we are the cells of a larger body, just like, we're composed of all these little infinitely complex cells. It does feel like we're moving towards something. You hear you hear Joe Rogan talk about this all the time, funny enough, that it seems like civilizations are always marching towards something. I don't personally believe it's AI, but it does kind of seem like you have this initial consciousness that creates reality, and then we are almost the feelers kind of going out into reality to help this consciousness actually experience it. And then as we come together, sort of as the Christians would say, doing the will of God, or I suppose you could even say it's the will of the supreme being, as we're kind of coming together, coordinating, exchanging information, helping each other build up the world around us. We're making reality more real. Evil is kind of withdrawing from this collective consciousness and unrealifying reality. You're kind of unraveling everything. That's absolutely fascinating.
It's a really potent concept to think about that your experience contributes to the grand experience of the cosmos. It inspires me. That's when I wake up and I want to do this and help other people achieve their potential. I want to achieve my potential. I want to help spread the news, scream it from the rooftops like you're doing with your channel. And like that means you get to put your little fingerprint on history. You get a little part in the chapter of the book of life for our planet with your life on Earth, So when you push it to the limit and say, you know what, I'm going to figure out the mysteries. I'm going to seek other people that want to do it. We're going to do it, and we're going to help others who are asking these questions. You're contributing to that like cosmic experience bank in a really strong way. So I think it's a potent concept, and also it kind of, like you said, it helps us realize that we should stop treating each other badly. I know it sounds so elementary, but it's true. We're at war. We're killing each other. We're making fun of each other for the stupidest things. Like, look at your color shoes, laughing kids out of high school, all this kind of stuff. It's ridiculous over the dumbest things. And that is just, I guess you would say, God fighting God. So the supreme hurting the supreme, especially at war when we kill each other. So I think these concepts are very potent to stimulate progress and to also stop us from hurting each other. And I think that's the most important thing, right?
Yeah, progress doesn't come without strife, though. Like that's the balance of the universe, and everything has balance. You need bad for good. You need good for bad. Like one can't exist without the other. You can't have something that's good if bad doesn't exist. There's no contrast. And so seeing everything as a lesson is, I think, the right mentality. And might not be your lesson. It might be someone else's lesson. Like, again, I go back to Journey of Souls, but there are some souls that allegedly incarnate into, a child being killed in the Holocaust. And you're like, why would you choose that body? That's an insane choice to me. You would never, but the soul is so concerned with learning and growing experience that it doesn't think about that. It thinks about how it can help perhaps teach a valuable lesson to the other soul that's taking care of it. So that parent, it might need to just
Interesting.
inhabit this life for a few years so that it can help this other soul with their journey. And so it'll take one for the team and it'll be glad to.
Wow.
It's like, it does that out of like, yeah, of course I would love to do this. This would be a great learning experience for you. And, and at the same time, it helps them learn something. And it's all this willing, ness to put yourself in a terrible position, so that you can learn. Like, if you've ever had like out of body experiences or any type of astral or even lucid dreaming, you quickly realize that you walk a tightrope of fear. Like, there is this tipping point that if you start thinking of something, it's going to instantly manifest, good or bad. And it can be a scary feeling, right? If you think of something bad and you're like, oh, I can't unthink that, overwhelming dark shadows, something, and it's terrifying. And I think that I don't, just a hypothesis, but I think that where the soul's from, I think that's what life's like. I think it's instant manifestation, always, constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't learn anything there because everything is instant. You can have everything all the time. And so we incarnate to this slow, lower density 3D plane where, sorry, I'm getting a call here. 1 second.
The
Are you guys
afterlife
still
is
there?
calling. Yeah.
We are.
Yeah.
We're still there.
Don't say too much, Chris.
So, yeah, exactly. So, we now are in this plane where manifestation is still possible.
Yeah.
But it's slow comparatively. Like, we have to move through molasses to make things happen. We have
Yeah.
time now. What the hell? Time?
Yeah.
We didn't have to deal with this ever.
Yeah.
And now we have this stretched out reality where we gotta I gotta do things and wait and make it happen. And it's like all of this very slow sort of these slow lessons, but it's the only way that we can learn, I think. And it's the valuable lessons that we learn. So we're put here in this like lower density to deal with pain, to deal with this, to be the bad guys, that we can learn to be the good guy. So I think it's necessary to have that evil sometimes, to be able to teach lessons. I think if you don't learn that lesson, like you said at the beginning, you're forced to repeat it. And so I think we're teaching ourselves lessons, we're teaching others lessons in this slow sort of reality. And if we complete them, we complete them. If we don't, it doesn't matter. We have another chance to do it again, and we'll hurry up and get back here and see if we can make it a little further this time. And I think that's seeing how everything is so fast and in dream state, there's no time when you're sleeping. Everything's so different. Here, everything's tangible and physical and long and sometimes hard and boring, or can be exciting, but it's peaks and valleys. And that's the only way I think that we can learn anything. I don't think we learn if we don't have that strife or that conflict or friction.
You know what this makes me think of? Tying it back to the papers we were talking about earlier. This concept of antecedent causation. It's that we are in this shared reality where everything is remembered by one infinite mind. It's held in that memory. Whereas when you withdraw into your own mind, in your subconscious or in your dream state, it's like your own personal universe. So everything's kind of instantaneous as you think about. As we engage with other minds, we're kind of limiting our reality, almost like shackles in a way, but like we need that to grow, because what are we in isolation? It's like kind of an analogy I had thought of is like the registers in computer memory or the atoms in a crystal. We serve our greatest function in relation to each other. And I think that's really what spirituality is all about on the highest scale. Is it's just our engagement with others, with other personalities. Debake, this kind of makes me think of that hilarious book.
This
Oh,
kind of reminds me of this here.
dude.
Oh,
Like,
hey.
like this would be like if you're staring at something, it has conscious awareness as well on some level. So
Oh.
it's conscious of these things,
It's like the
right?
observer effect.
Exactly. Yeah. So this only exists because you're looking at this type deal,
Whoa.
right? And so
Mm,
collectively, if we're all doing that, this is how we're creating our reality.
yeah.
What book is that?
This is an interesting book, Contact
UFO.
from
Ummo.
Planet
Oh, I've heard of the
UMMO.
Ummos.
Oh.
I read that when I was young. Not that
Yeah.
the whole book, but I know
It-
about that case.
Yeah, it's pretty dense. It was like there's like a collection of thousands of letters that were sent across Europe in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, I think.
Yeah.
And to all sorts of different physicists, scientists, parapsychologists. And it's about this race of being from a planet UMMO, and they give you all the information on everything. So it's a contact case, and it's interesting. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah, that
That's
UFO contact format. I know there's several books like that. I saw your interview recently with Pope. I can't think of his
Yep.
first name.
Nick Pope.
Nick Pope, and really good interview, real life X-Files. And I saw you focused on a stack of books, and I saw UFO Contact from Planet Iarga. I got to
Yeah.
know your thoughts on this because that book stood out to me as exceptionally interesting.
So I haven't read it yet. I haven't
Oh
read it
my
yet.
God.
Yeah. I'm excited to read about it. I'm getting through a lot of the contact books. They're fascinating because they all have their own little, lore.
Yeah.
And every single one of them seems to add a little bit more to the equation. Like you never finish reading a book going, none of that made sense or none of that fits into the greater picture. There's always something, if not a lot of things, that cross correlate or can help populate the all the theories.
Yeah, it leads me to believe that the nature of reality is a lot weirder than any of us are willing to admit, and infinitely complex. I think the fundamental truths of the lessons we learn and all that are simple and they're graspable, but the
Mhm.
actual nitty-gritty of reality is infinite complexity. That UFO Contact from Planet Iarga book, it stood out to me because Stefan Denard, I believe was his name, he was a highway infrastructure engineer, and he had at his disposal these artists that were able to sketch out like diagrams and all this. So when he has this encounter with these beings, it's like a race of otter people. They evolved in like a
Mhm.
water world. And he draws out what their highways look like. They got these little cars that go up onto these train tracks. He just layouts their buildings, their architecture. It's really cool stuff. They're flying saucers. It's got these synchrotron particle accelerators inside of them.
Yeah, like
And,
they go through physics, right? Like that's
yeah,
same
it's
with UMO.
wild.
Like they tell you how the crafts work and all these little diagrams. And
Dude.
I'm not smart enough to
I
understand
think
half of it, but
I'm pretty sure we could build they're spending thousands of dollars to reverse
yeah.
engineer or millions to
Damn.
reverse engineer UFOs, but I feel like if they just got all these weird books that say they're from aliens, they could piece together what they need to know.
Right.
I
I'd
love
be
these
surprised
books.
That's
if they
hilarious.
haven't figured that out. To be
Yeah.
honest,
Yeah.
I think they've long since figured that
Yeah,
out.
you're probably right. But I guess
Yeah.
we, as the people, we
Yes.
need another option. So we need to
Open
collect all these
source.
books.
Open source.
I'm reading this one right now too. Stranger at
Oh,
the
classic.
Pentagon.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, the what's his name? Valiant
Valiant.
Thor.
I need your attention, everybody. This just in. The New Jersey drones are now over New York, LA, and every major capital on the face of planet Earth. They keep repeating a message over the 6 gigahertz frequency band, and it keeps saying, Planetary HQ has cosmic garments for your physical mechanism. In other words, we got that drip.
Straight from the Galactic Federation wardrobe, these tees vibrate at the frequency of chill. Ribbed knit collars lovingly hug your neck chakra, preventing collar droop across dimensions. Tapered shoulders enhance your interstellar silhouette, perfect for Earth missions and beyond. Dual side seams stabilize your style, ensuring your energy stays aligned even when encountering planetary turbulence. Crafted from 100% classified heirloom combed and ring spun cotton,
This feather-light fabric breathes like you're cruising through the astral plane. Ideal for layering beneath your space cloak or relaxing at your Earth base. The tailored retail fit transitions seamlessly from casual Earthling mode to I've got crystals in my pocket and I ain't from here chic, making it essential apparel for your rigorous interdimensional journey. So check out them shirts. We got a bunch of different colors. Link is in the description. Your contributions directly support spiritual operations on the front line in the battle for truth, beauty, and righteousness. With your help, we can help change the face of planet Earth, and we can look fly while doing it. Okay, now that we can fund the Black Budget Anti-Grav program, let's get back to the show.
Valiant Thor.
Another interesting guy.
Yeah, speaking of contacts, I have a question for you personally. Have you had any contact experiences?
No, not with a being, I would say, unless you count like during an out of body when I had like some voice, on the back of my back here, like a female voice.
I'm
Yeah.
interested in that.
Well, that
'Cause
was
I too have a female voice encounter.
okay. It was I made a documentary on the gateway stuff, and in part 3, I go through my out of body experiences that I had subsequent to the gateway after I got home and meditated every day for like 4 months for like an hour, and
Wow.
I started popping out of my body. I started having out of body experiences, and during waking meditations, like not during sleep or anything.
Oh, that's amazing.
It was daytime. It was like put the headphones down, close my eyes, and immediately leave my body. Like, very profound experiences. Yeah, and walking around the room, I got out of my body. And there's this whole things that happen. There's a few things that happen in my out of body experiences personally. Like, if I try to speak, my voice is like super low, like
Interesting.
like scary low,
Whoa.
and it scares me every time. Every time I'll say, like, one time, the first time I went out of body willingly, because I had 2 out of body experiences that were like spontaneous, that
Oh, wow.
that had happened, which sent me down this rabbit hole, right? But the first time it happened willingly when I got back from Monroe a few months after I got back, it was all dark, and I was like, it's always dark when I leave the body at first, and I have to either peel my eyes open or, um, which I found out later, you can demand clarity, and if you demand clarity, you start seeing through your eyelids apparently, and
Oh,
you can see
Thanks
everything.
for
So
that tip.
like
yeah, and so
commands. That's
yeah,
amazing.
well, it's your reality, right? So it's you control it, but you just so at first it's like all fuzzy and weird, and like you can make it more clear, and you can manipulate it apparently.
Oh,
And so I'm there, and I'm like, I feel like I'm in the phasing period, which is like, this is like your soul body doing this inside your physical. And I'm like, oh my God, it's happening. Like, man, I'm like, oh my God, it's happening. I can't believe it's happening. And I'm like, oh, okay, where do I want to go? Right. And cause you can just go anywhere. And I said Paris, cause, it's a long story, but a friend of mine, she went to Paris, and it was like the first thing that came to mind. You panic when you're in the States. You don't want to lose it. Cause it's so like, and I was like, and I go, Paris, Paris, Paris. But as I said it, it was like, Paris, Paris, Paris. And I go,
Oh,
and I'm terrified of my own voice. And all of a sudden I'm hurled like 1,000 miles an hour. And I
whoa.
feel like the wind going by and I'm like flying like this. And I just stop, and I'm hanging in the air. It's like dark, and I feel a shift around me. I feel like the world going like this around me. Like, whoa. And then I peel my eyes open, and there's this giant machine of like this big black cube churning inwards. I was like, "The hell am I looking at?" And I closed my eyes. I
Whoa.
opened my eyes again. It's still there. I was terrified. I wiggle my fingers, and then I snap back into my body. And I was like, "What was that? Like, was that some tesseract? Like, I don't even know what the hell." My heart was pounding.
Oh my God.
The next day, I was reading "Journeys Out of the Body" by Robert Monroe, and in chapter 17 was where I was at. So I'm in the shower. I'm listening to the audiobook, and he starts talking about, don't think of a place, think of a person. Because if you think of a place, it's not going to work. And I go, oh, that explains it. And
Whoa.
the girl who had left her body, Hannah, she had went to Paris, but her sister lived there. And so that's
Okay.
why for her, she was able to like fly around Paris. It wasn't a problem.
Oh.
And so, yeah, that was just an interesting insight. But back to this voice. The last out of body that I had, broad daylight, I'm meditating, put my headphones down, close my eyes immediately. I deeply desire to leave my body. I say this 3 times in my head, and I think it actually. I don't actually say it in my head. And I get out of my body, and now I can't see anything. So I remembered, oh, I'm going to demand clarity. So I go, clarity now. It's like this deep demonic voice that comes out of me. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I start seeing, and I'm like, okay. And it's my room. It's a little different. It's like 80% matched to your room. It's very bizarre. It's like the upside down kind of. And it's like, there's like a haze, like a weird dense fog you're walking through. And it's very, there's like a eerie feeling of like dread a little bit. Like anything could happen here if you think too much about it. And so I look back, I see myself, I go, ooh, don't want to look at that. Walk to the window, baby steps. And I was told like by one of the teachers at Monroe, because it is scary. And he's like, just 1 foot in front of the other. And when you're not comfortable, come back to your body, lay back down your body and wake up. And, just do that and get a little bit further every time. And then when you get to the window, try to put your hand through the window. So I got to the window. At this point, I'm like, okay, everything's good. I don't look around too much. I'm like, I see my window. And I go to put my hand through and it doesn't go through. And I'm like, okay. So I open the window, really easy to open, just like slides open. And I go to jump out and it's broad daylight. And I'm like going to jump out and I get halfway out and I hear a voice go, what are you doing? And it's a female voice. And I don't recognize this voice. And I go, and I kind of tense up. I'm like, I'm terrified at this point because you're in a place that you're not familiar with. You feel like you're not supposed to be there. It's not a dream. So you're not like, la, 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 I can do whatever I want here. You're in a place. Like, it's not, I don't know how to explain it. It's just a different place that you're in. And so I'm like, oh, and I kind of like, I see my body, I tiptoe back to my body and I lay back down and then I get up. And that was like a minute and a half from when I closed my eyes. Right. So there was no time dilation. There was no sleep. I didn't sleep at all. I was lucid the entire time. And that messed me up. So that's the last time I left my body. And that was the only time I've ever encountered something. I don't know what it was, if it was my subconscious or something else. But I've since been restarting the whole gateway thing to try and communicate with something. So that's my goal.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So the last like 3 weeks or 3 weeks, I've been every day doing the meditations at like 4:30 in the morning and trying to leave my body and hopefully interact with something. That's the goal. And try to obtain some objective information that I can verify. Yeah.
Some direct contact
sick, dude.
We love that.
Yeah. You gotta keep us updated with all that. I'm sure you will keep the entire channel updated. That's sick, man.
It's a crazy thing to think about. But
you're making me want to get more into like the out of body stuff. Taychilla Taylor, he's more into the out of body astral projection thing, and I need to do more study on it. I was really into like lucid dreaming when I was young. Write journal your dream experiences, had a dream journal, and I got lucid a couple times. Actually, me and Taychilla have had some shared dreams, which is kind of scary.
We did, yeah.
That's for a different
multiple
topic,
overlapping data points. But
yeah, it's weird. And we text each other in the morning. We're like, dude, what the heck? But your stories make me want to, actually consciously try it, because it seems like it unconsciously happens to me.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we're given experiences, I might as well give one of mine, I guess. It's back when I was in college, it's a sleep paralysis thing. It's been happening to me for a little bit. Well, since I was actually little. When I was a little boy, when I'd fall asleep, it felt like I was falling, like a leaf falling in the wind.
Yeah.
And it felt like I was on a roller coaster, and I'd get scared and wake up and have to run to my parents' room. And then like it would happen like every other week, and slowly started to fade away as I got older. And then in college one time, I got lucid in a dream, and I'm like, oh, I'm in the middle of a field. And it was like a nice little field, almost like a football field. And then like I felt a presence above me, and I felt what the cliche, like a tractor beam, and it like started pulling me up from the top. And I go, no, oh my God, no. I think The Fourth Kind, if you know what movie that is.
Yeah.
It's a movie that kind of strikes fear
scary
into you.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm like, no, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. Don't take me. And I'm flexing. I'm putting up kind of like, like a soul fire. I don't want it to take me. And it's still trying to, and finally I'm trying to scream. And when I do that, I wake up in my body, in my bed, but I'm paralyzed and I can't move. And I'm freaking out. And I'm like, oh my God, it's going to happen. I'm going to get abducted right now. The grays are going to appear and I'm going to leave. And I start trying to scream as loud as I can. And I can't scream because my body's still locked up. And I'm like, oh my God, it's happening. And then finally, after a minute of that, oh, my voice comes out and I start screaming and I get up and I like go into the bathroom and I start splashing water on my face and I'm just there. And in my head, I was like, oh my God, did you survive an abduction? What just happened there? And then now, that was when I was in college. I'm 35 now. So over 10 years ago. But I've had a lot of time to process that experience. And I think that I gave into fear and that it could have been a positive experience to meet positive beings. And instead I locked up and maybe they were like, oh, I guess he doesn't want it. He doesn't want this. So we're not going to push the fear into him. So they kind of broke away. But now I wish I would have gone with it as opposed to fighting it, if that makes sense.
Do you fly? Have you ever flown in your dreams?
Yeah, I jump from cloud to cloud and I fly a lot in my dreams.
Is that recently or when you were a kid more?
When I was a kid, a lot more, but it's happened recently. Ever since we started the podcast and talking about it more, it's started to come back. And that's what's making me want to study more.
Because the sleep paralysis stuff is interesting. A friend of mine had, he could induce sleep paralysis.
Whoa.
Yeah, which is wild. And he doesn't like doing it. He's like, it's the scariest thing for him. He hates it. He knows that if he gets too hot at night, or if he hasn't had like a couple beers, he's a big drinker. But that'll happen. That's one of the reasons he drinks. So it's to like ward it off. And I told him, I was like, I think what you're experiencing is the out of body state. It sounds the exact same as the out of body state, except you don't know how to leave your body.
Exactly.
Wow.
And so, because when I'm in that state, he explained it to me. It was like, okay, everything's kind of like weird. It's like you're in this haze. The room is the same, but it isn't the same. It's maybe a bit smaller, maybe a bit bigger. There's like a vibration happening. There's like all these different little telltale factors, a low saturation and almost like high ISO.
Low saturation. That's weird.
Like
high
fuzzy.
ISO, low saturation. Yeah. As if somebody like sprayed something on the lens too. It's like, weird.
Exactly. Grainy. And that is for me, the out of body state. And so it's what he described as the sleep paralysis state as well. And I said, I think you need to start training yourself how to roll out of your body, because I think you have a really cool gift here that most people don't have. And if you have these sleep paralysis thing, I think you can just turn it around. There's books on this too. But there are a lot of tricks in how to get out of your body. And so that's like, once you're in that state, you imagine like being on a teeter-totter or on a swing or climbing a rope or just like rolling out of your body, like, or these things. For me, I can just will myself up. I'm there and I'm like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden I'm vibrating. I feel like this like buzz, and I can just will myself like forward upwards. I could just like I know that I'm not attached to my body at this point. So I just like go, right? But your body is completely asleep, in my opinion, during these things. And so if you're trying to move your body, you're not attached to your body right now. Like you're like detached. You're in this detached state, I think. So you trying to move your body and scream doesn't make sense. And that's why it's making you panic, because you're trying to move your limbs. But if you just like use your conscious body or your soul body, you might be able to just walk around the room and get out and fly around.
That's exactly what I'm thinking, man. All right, Taylor, you heard it. You heard it here now. I got to do more research. So
it's funny because me and Deadrick just last night, we were kind of just riffing over Discord, and I was basically I was prodding him because I started the out of body meditations when I was like 19, only a couple years after hearing about the UFO stuff and really changing my worldview. And I had experiences like right away, that vibrational stage, the sort of floating out. And, ever since then, it's been a personal practice and an adventure to like repeat that and then try and see where I can go. How far can I take it? So I'm super into this topic. Been doing it for, I guess those past 26 now. So that's almost like 6 years. And the best advice I ever got was roll out, get the hell out. And it's because for me, when I get to that separation stage, I feel magnetically locked in. And I think that's probably also when people have sleep paralysis, they don't know that they can move at all, that etheric part of the body.
Yep.
But I've like had, I've sat up with my torso and my legs still feel locked in. And so when I was given the advice, and that's multiple data points, multiple times being like halfway in, halfway out. And the rollout to me, it's like the cleanest separation, most consistent that I get. And when I picture it, there's also a very electrical sensation when you're in that separation stage. And I think eventually we're going to be able to measure on what energy level in the universe does this experience happen. It's just a matter of what frequency. We can probably measure like effect, like the shadow of the effects at this current point, but I think we're going to get there. But anyway, I have this theory that like that energetic body is sort of magnetically locked in with your physical body, and that the reason I get success with the rollout maneuver is that when you take two magnets and they're together and then you turn one, they propel each other, and it's like a full separation. And so I picture like the axis of the spine, which has all your nervous system. That's like the axis where your consciousness is kind of stored, and it mostly lives from there. And by creating that 180-degree separation, it creates that clean separation. But I also recognize like times when you're like, my first experience was, it was just sort of floating upwards. But whenever I try to do it now, I always do the rollout, because then I'm like on the floor, my senses are dark. I kind of have to focus to get my visuals in. And then I'm normally jumping out the window and like flying through the glass, because it's like the first thing that pops into my head is normally what I do, which is what you were saying earlier, is like in these realms, the manifestation, the time between thought and action is so far reduced that it also feels like, to me, I call it my astral childhood, where it's like I'm getting out and you just want to like play after I got past the fearful experiences, because there were some scary ones. And some people call that the guardian at the threshold. Even your experience being in your room and somebody being like, "Hey, like, what are you doing?" That's also super common. And people talk about how like it's hard to escape their room, but then eventually they get past that. And there's some sort of the thing to that experience. Whether, I mean, to me, I don't think it's super important to like make a decision. Is it a real being or is it my subconscious? Unless you have repeated experiences where you can actually talk with them and get information, then you can kind of make those decisions. But yeah, I'm super into this topic, so I'm gonna meet you on the astral plane. I'm gonna give you some data,
cool.
and I've thought a lot about like how to verify your experiences, especially when it comes to shared experiences. Like, okay, I need to share some of my experience with this person, but they need to verify and tell me stuff, so there's not just a confirmation bias. So
there's a lot of that that exists, actually, which is really crazy. When you go to the Monroe Institute, a lot of people talk about that. A lot of the counselors there have had those experiences at the Monroe Institute, so there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on there like that. And one thing that we found in our group, the 19 of us, after day one, there was this like psychic interplay that would happen. People start showing up in each other's meditations. We'd send each other messages, and like people be like, "All right, I sent you something. What was it?" Like, I don't know. I saw like this butterfly. It's like, "Oh my God, look, I wrote a butterfly." And like these type of things would happen a lot, like very common, to the point where like we just kind of acknowledged them and move on and accepted them. At one point, I mean, there's a few instances where I was like, this is getting kind of freaky. But at one point with Jordan Crowder, he was, I didn't really know Jordan at all. I had a meditation. It was a really deep meditation. It wasn't out of body or anything, but I had as clear as day, Jordan's like face or presence was there. And then I saw a scoreboard and it said Dallas. Right. And I'm like, and it was like, I don't even know what that means. I don't know what that means. I don't watch sports. I don't know anything about this stuff. So I go to Jordan and I wrote this down. I showed him. I'm like, I drew this scoreboard and I said, "Jordan, you popped up my meditation." It said Jordan, and then there's a scoreboard with Dallas. And he goes, "Whoa." And I go, "What?" He's like, "You have no idea. I'm originally from Dallas. So he lives in Florida. I didn't know he's from Dallas. He goes, I'm originally from Dallas. The Dallas Mavericks are my favorite team, and they're in the playoffs, and they have a game tonight, and it's all I've been thinking about all day. I've been distracted.
Wow. Oh
Dude,
my
I'm like,
gosh.
no
What the
freaking way.
heck?
And you know, like I had no idea the Mavericks were playing. I don't know any of this. And so for me, it was like,
What the
what
heck?
the
Yeah.
And so these things would happen over and over and over and over during the week. My friend Nelson, who's a memory champion, he's a 6-time US memory champion. And
Wow.
him and I went down the remote viewing rabbit hole together for a year. He's the one who taught me about remote viewing. He was taught by this hedge fund that wanted to play the stock market. It's a crazy story, but he ended up teaching me. And then him and I have been sort of down the same journey of like, you know, we tried DMT together for the first time. Like we do all these like astral things, kind of like you guys do. But it was me and Nelson, we were supposed to be at the Gateway together, and it didn't work out. It did his flight didn't, and it was like all these things. I'm like, dude, I don't think you're meant to go with me. And I'm just going to go. And I ended up going. He ended up going a week later, and he had a wild experience. He, first night he gets there, he's like very sort of left brain guy. He's, incredibly, like physics oriented. He went to university for physics, and, you know, just kind of, and he goes, listen, goes to a girl there and says, can you write down on a piece of paper in your room, they all have different rooms, 4-digit number, and leave it face up on your desk. I'm going to see if I can leave my body and come see what that number is, right?
Oh, man.
So very objective test here to see, hey, okay, there's no faking this, right? So, and I talk about this in the part 3 of the Gateway series, and I interview him. It's a wild story. He has the drawing and everything. So he's in his check unit, he's meditating, and he doesn't leave his body, but something else happens. And in the realm of consciousness, there's all sorts of ways you can navigate the conscious realm. It's like an ocean, right? You can take a paddle boat out there. You can take your scuba gear. You can surf. You can take a jet ski. There's different ways of interacting with the ocean. And the deeper you go, there's all sorts of different creatures you might encounter, right? So it's like it's a super vast area. And he's there in his bed, and all of a sudden he sees this like almost like a candle being held in the dark, like a lantern. And he sees kind of like this. And in here is like this wall pattern. And then it goes away. He's like, what was that? This weird wall pattern. And then it opens up again. And now he's seeing like the bottom of like a check unit, like one of these beds, and like clothes on the ground, like a bag of clothes. And then it closes up again. And then it opens up again. And now he's staring at a table. Okay. And the table is cluttered with all sorts of items, weird items. And there's a paper in the middle of the table. But he's looking at it like this. Like he's like, it was almost like a focus lens, and where like the first 3 numbers were incredibly visible. The last one was like out of focus, but there was a number there. He knew it was 4 numbers, and he could see it. He sees the font. He's like, if I looked away and looked back at it, I could see it. That's how clear it was. And it was like, I forget what the numbers were, but like, let's say 706, and then he put like a 4, 7064, and he's like, clear as day. And he writes that down. He gets out of his meditation. He draws the table. He writes down out of focus number, you know, does this, and gets out of his check unit. The girl's coming down from her room. She's holding the paper, and it's the same numbers except for the last number. And then the last number is like a 3 instead of a 4. So he had the same first 3 numbers, and the last number was out of focus. And he was like, holy shit. Like,
that's crazy.
It blew his mind wide open. And he took that as a sign of like, all right, you got your confirmation. This stuff is real. It exists. Now let go, relax, and enjoy the process, you know? And that's exactly what he did. But it is like, to him, the way he describes it, you're just like, you know, he's not trying to sell a book about remote viewing. Like he's just telling me what happened, and he has the drawing and everything. And he went to go see the girl, and she's freaking out, and like, what a wild experience. That was one of the first times I've heard of like some confirmation, some data on the, you know, in the external world. I was really, really impressed by that.
Bringing them scientific data. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that gnarly that they're actually pulling that data like that. That's insane.
Kind of like remote viewing, I guess, what happened, but not entirely. Yeah.
It's like perfect confirmation that it works.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
numbers are notoriously difficult to view
Oh,
in
yeah.
whether it's the out of body state or whether it's remote viewing. It's very rare, and remote viewers don't normally are not able to view numbers for whatever reason.
Oh, okay. I think I've heard that. Yeah, they're kind of obscure, but that's pretty
Mhm.
gnarly that he was actually able to pull that data. We're doing an episode pretty soon with a guy named Shane O'Mac. He actually went with the Bledsoes. They did for the first time. They went to the Monroe Institute. And shout out to the Bledsoe family, Chris Senior, Junior, Ryan. What's going on, brothers? We want to also try to get over there and experience what you've gone through. So hopefully keep it locked on the channel. We'll have our experience on the channel too. But while we're doing the podcast and we're kind of coming down to our final descent, the last leg, I guess, I want to fire off a couple questions for you if you don't mind.
Sure.
You can answer this if you want to or don't. But I did hear Jesse Michaels speak on the Joe Rogan interview, and he says that Chris Ramsay has some specific insight onto the truth behind Bob's claim of having been stationed at S4. Is that something that you can talk about?
It's not for me to say, but I can tell you that I do have information. I don't think that is not public, obviously, about Bob. You know, I was able to meet Bob. I was able to hang out with him and ask him some burning questions and that type of deal. But there is a lot of new information that will be coming out with Project Gravitor and S4, the Bob Lazar story. And so I'm not going to get ahead of them. But it is well worthwhile if you're into Bob's, story, which I am. And I got a chance to talk to Bob, and I got a chance to feel his energy in regards to this stuff, and it's heavy, man. It is heavy. It's not. You're not meeting some ufologist at a book signing when you talk to him, dude. It is scary for him, and you feel that weight when he talks about it and his reluctance to want to be there because of the implications of, his own life. And it's very, very real. And so there's a few moments that when I was talking to him, I felt his energy shift.
Yeah.
And, consequently mine shifted too, because I'm like, damn, this went from lore, to this guy was there. There's no doubt in my mind. And he's got to live with that now,
Mm.
and it, for him, the implications of what he was there for, I think, have worn out over time, but the imminent fear of, being pursued for what he'd worked on is he lives with every day. And that is a real, 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 real thing. And you could feel it off of it. And so, I hope that comes through. And with all the other information that they have in Project Gravitor, which is quite a bit, it'll be a real, real treat. This is, if you're into Bob Lazar stuff, which I know you are,
Yeah.
dude, this is the most complete everything Bob Lazar. Like all the stuff you didn't even know you wanted to know about Bob,
You're talking about
wow.
Gravitar when that drops?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
exactly.
excited for that. I actually watched your Gateway videos, the 3-part series before this interview, and I watched the Gravitar with Luigi Vendetti and
Meant to
D-Bake.
tell you,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I knew something Italian.
yeah, exactly.
D-Bake, we missed Luigi, or I didn't point him out at but I recognized him. He was at Contact in the Desert, and he's the one doing this. He's got a whole team recreating the entire S4
S4
base and where they had the UFO in
Okay.
a 3D environment. So they're going to do
Yeah.
a 3D VR experience. It's also a documentary. I think there's a book.
I am pumped.
So there's this whole thing, and I think it's really prescient, considering how much more information we're getting from the whistleblowers about these reverse engineering programs. So I hope that it really kind of aligns and gives people the context that they need, because I'm not sure that we're going to get that info directly from the government anytime soon, but we are going to hear more about how much it's been covered up. But Bob Lazar's story, it stands there, and it's sort of it's the best case of this is somebody who worked on it. Here's all the details, and yeah, I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, it goes past whatever you like. it's like a shortcut to the program, his stuff, and when you hear, and all respect to David Grush and all these other guys coming out, but that's not the program. They're scratching the surface. Bob was deep in it. Bob is the deepest guy in the program that has ever come out. He was a guy, he went inside and he said it, and
All the haters in the comments.
he's working with the fuel. And yeah, I mean, people can hate all they want, but it's easy from a position like that. But if you really look at, I mean, it's easier for me to say things because I know things. But I'm excited for people to also hear those things and then hear it from Bob directly.
That's dope.
I'll just say, I'm very much into the S4. The whole story. I remember seeing a guy give a presentation about with some slides and 3D renderings of S4, and then sure enough, Project Gravatar is promising an actual 3D rendering of everything, kind of from memory. I'm an environment artist working with the team Tripmine Studios. We're remaking Half-Life: Opposing Force, and it's kind of the same thing, a deep underground military research facility, deconstructing alien tech and all that. I'm absolutely infatuated with that. Obviously, Bob Lazar is deep in it, as well as Dan Burrish. Do you hold credibility to his story? I know you were talking about that website earlier that there's a lot of information surrounding him.
Yeah. Dan Burrish, I do hold some conviction that his story is real. Not as high for me personally as Bob's story, just because I've spent time with Bob now and I kind of get it. But I still have some conviction that Dan is telling the truth, or at least a lot of what Dan's saying makes sense when I compare it to other things that I've heard in different like programs, right? So specifically, what's it called? Looking Glass. That
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I think that's the big one. Yeah.
Wow.
Like
So,
supercharged gas, right? Spinning at a high frequency.
I'm not sure exactly what it was. I'm not sure if that's the truth.
Okay.
But I think the time travel stuff is like the deepest part of the program. I think it's without a doubt, like if you ever get to UFOs, it's because they let you get to UFOs. I don't think you'll ever get to this other thing. I think time travel is way deeper. And then it goes into like really spooky, weird sort of adjustment bureau type deal. And
wow.
Yeah. I think that's the heart of it. After, everything I've looked into, and people I've talked to and everything else, it seems like that's like at the heart of it, but it's one of those things that like just sounds like a science fiction movie.
Yeah.
And,
Now, that seems to imply that if Looking Glass, I kind of have a suspicion that could be intimately related to the out of body experience. What if that kind of is remote viewing in a way? It does kind of seem like it's all connected. We've heard countless stories from other whistleblowers like Jake Barber and many others that psionics are a huge component to these craft. And kind of touching on Dan Bursh's encounter with that being, and the Dr. David, I guess it was an article from the 70s that you're reading, which interesting how early that account was. He describes a similar being, and I really did see the logic with that boy's encounter being a subconscious regurgitation of a surgery he had, but there are so many little details there that kind of line up. Now, I got to ask you, with the similarity of these different beings, most of them being gray in appearance, do you have any kind of running theories in your mind, maybe multiple concurrent theories or something you've settled on? What are the grays? Why are there so many variations? Could it be some kind of master race that's genetically modifying others? And then do you suspect there could actually be countless other races out there in an infinite variety, and maybe we are near some super highway coming out of the galaxy and they're all just kind of paying a visit but following some kind of rules not to directly interfere with us? I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. As for the grays, I mean, even if you look at what Dan Bursch was saying about it, he said that there's two species of them, and that, you know, they're both from competing timelines. Our time, they're us. Like, you know, if you ask Dan Bursch, you see him on these interviews, and he'll say, you know, there's humans, you and I. Um,
That's right.
Part of them eventually left here and went to the Orion. The other one went to Reticulum. And so that's his idea, is that like they're both humans, but it's two different timelines that happened, two different outcomes that made these two different beings, and they went to two different star systems, and pretty interesting stuff. But personally, the one theory that I've been playing with, that I've been toying with recently, is the idea that we're just dealing with a system that's been put in place, like a von Neumann-esque type probe system that was left here. And so if you know, if we want to jump around and seed the universe and the galaxies, we wouldn't do so ourselves, first of all, right? That's very primitive. And even if we do, you're not going to find an exoplanet that can sustain human life. It's just not mathematically going to happen. Something's off. The nitrogen levels, the radiation, the gravity, or whatever it is, something's just not going to work, where you're not going to be able to thrive. And so you'll be forced to live underground or in a bubble and make your own sort of oxygen and whatnot, which isn't ideal. So instead, it would make much more sense to find a planet that already had life on it, or seed life there, and that you can manipulate with your DNA and eventually grow into a species that can just live there. And that still provides, you know, your species with some type of longevity in terms of, you know, existing. You can do, like, we just want to be on the other planet because we're selfish. But if you think of like animals and stuff, it's all about the species. Now, how do we extend the life of the species, right? And if you were to think that way, you'd find a planet, find the life that's there, mess with it, and let it grow, let it blossom, and monitor it, and make sure it has everything it needs in order to grow. Now, if you had the ability to bounce around the universe at will with technology, you would do this to 100 million different planets. You wouldn't do it to 10 or 3 or 1,000. It would be all the planets, right? Because you would have that tech by then. And so once you've done that, you know, perhaps you're dropping these systems into the oceans, right? So these, you know, we look at the mobile construction unit idea of this whistleblower that talked about, made these crafts that were built to spec, these beings that looked built to spec, and kind of these things would live in all the oceans of all the worlds. And if ever anything happened that tipped the scales either way, it would, you know, deploy some of these craft. They would go fix the problem. They would come right back, almost like an autoimmune response system for the planet to thrive. And perhaps sometimes you would need the beings on the planet to, you know, accelerate their evolution. You would need them to be stronger or smarter to help, you know, propel this idea of seeding these planets. And so you would need to take them, mess with their DNA a little bit, and put them back. And for that, you would need bodies to do that. You couldn't, you know, the crafts themselves don't have the capability. So perhaps you just supply the crafts with these ephemeral, sort of disposable beings that are just there, you know, task oriented, kind of robotic.
So weird.
And they're working on some type of synthetic sentience, some type of AI system that is controlling this system. And now that doesn't explain everything, but I do think it explains maybe a large majority of the encounters that we're having. It seems like we're not dealing with the intelligence behind the system so much as the system itself. We're dealing with like the worker bee, you know, we're not dealing with the queen bee or anything. And so that seems to be what it looks like. And then if you look at the abductions themselves, what happens? It's like they're very, they follow a pattern. You know, they follow a pattern of you get taken, you get the procedure, you then get a tour of the ship, you're flooded with like good endorphins and beautiful messages, and then you're shown like the end of the world, and then your mind's erased and you're sent back. But it seems like boom, 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 every single case, from Chris Bledsoe to, you know, the children of Rua, Zimbabwe. it all seems to fall into a pattern, right? And then you look at Skywatcher, right? They're summoning craft, or they're inviting craft. Well, if I was an intelligent species, you would only do that once to me before you shoot me down with a microwave cannon. You're not going to do that twice. I'm not a fish, dude. I'm not going to come back. Right. So what it looks like is that they found a way to hack or to summon this system, this immune response system, by creating these war games.
Interesting.
Right. You create these war games. It sends a signal out. These things come and they just like they're doing at the nuclear silos, shutting it down, boom, and then they're back, back into the ocean where they get to stay until the next, event happens. And so the question then becomes, it's like, if there is some type of alert for us, in this system that we're interacting with, in terms of like danger, there probably also has to be some type of alert system for ascension, right? When we get to that point where collectively we don't need to have this system in place anymore because we've learned to work together and put our nukes away. And maybe that signal will be sent out. And then that's when we get sort of invited into the family, so to speak, and then these other beings that we're seeing, you see the mantis folk, you see the people that look like humans, you see the reptile folk. Now, all of those three beings can also be found on Earth, right? So it's the same DNA. Like, we're all part of the same family, it seems like. And this seeding of these planets, like, if we see a craft come in from space, they're like, maybe they're just coming to eject some biome from another planet. And a lot of cases, we see these grays taking rocks or plant soil samples and leaving, right? So maybe that's all we're doing, is like, in and out are these deliveries of like seeding a planet with wildlife into these other planets. And that's why we have these mantis type and these reptile type and these human type. And it's all just part of the same sort of family. And so there's this system monitoring everything. If you're the intelligence, you're not going to waste your time, looking at what are they doing, how are they feeling. Like, you don't have to. There's 100 million planets to take care of. You're going to have a system in place that does that for you. And I think that's what we're interacting with for the most part.
Dude, that is trippy, man. Like, I've heard about the Greys being autonomous, being kind of like, we're not actually interacting with the intelligences. The intelligence are behind controlling the Greys. But you just kind of blew my mind by saying that they could possibly actually be from our Earth, from that big ship that whistleblower talks about that manufactures UFOs at the bottom of the ocean. Supposedly every time a government submarine gets close, it zips away at a high speed, or
exactly.
blows it up or vaporizes it. Both things I read. And that's wild. So these Greys that we're thinking could be coming from space could actually be getting manufactured on our planet and be part of an autonomous custodial system that the higher celestial personalities has set up. And then you even talk about that there's a higher ascension process, that if they see our spiritual level rising up, maybe that autonomous thing will be notified of it. It'll start to interact and interface with our society, and we'll be let into the galactic family. That's hey, bro, thanks for coming on. That's what I'm talking about. That's that juiciness I want. I appreciate that.
Yeah. It's a theory, but I mean, it neatly packages a lot of what we're dealing with. But again, there's so much other things that don't fit into this. So I think there are like rogue entities coming here that have totally different agendas, or totally different reasons for being here, whether it's just gassing up or eating a human randomly or whatever it is. I think maybe we're also dealing with that,
to serve man,
looching, or whatever it is.
Loosh farms.
Yeah, I do have one final question. It kind of goes back to when we're talking about journey of the souls, because that concept is definitely different than the traditional aliens and UFO fields. That's something deeply spiritual, almost religious. So, and that's something that we dive into deeply on this channel, because we think it delves directly to the human purpose, the human experience, sort of also the meaning of why the other T's exist and what they're doing and what we're doing, what they're doing on their planets and what we're doing on our planets, and the reason for that. So I guess the kind of question here is like, did you have any background in religion before kind of getting in these topics? And how has interacting with these topics, and specifically all the the personal experiences of out of body, the search for truth, how has that sort of morphed your perspective of religion, and what do you see? How can that sort of improve the planet as a whole? Because I see religions being highly affected by this whole topic, especially as the whole disclosure theme happens. So I think we're sort of on the precipice of the whole world being catalyzed by this topic, like we have all individually been. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that, with the religious background and where you're at now and where you think the world may go?
Yeah, I think religion is our way of explaining spirituality, our human way of sort of putting spirituality into a box, or whatever it is that drives our souls, whatever that force is, whether it's a being or a collective or ourselves in some way, shape, or form. I think it's our neat way of packaging that with rules that make sense to us because we want to live our lives and, have peace of mind. So, at a young age, I was raised Catholic. I wasn't really practicing. Became pretty staunchly atheist in my late teens up until my, I would say, late 20s, early 30s. Just because of the magic background, being a magician, you're very familiar with how easy it is to trick the mind and psychologically force people to believe things. And so, that kind of lifted a veil for me where I was like, oh, it's just all trickery. And it's all about, personal ego. And this is all just to get people to give you money or like whatever it was. That was my mentality. And then from that, just kind of became a little bit more agnostic in that I didn't, I found that I didn't have the answer. But I also found that like it was okay to say I don't know. And that was the most comfortable I was with spirituality, religion, just saying I don't know. I think it's totally fine to say I don't know. You don't have to say I believe this or I believe that. I think it's healthy to just not believe anything and just say I don't know. There's no like, why do we have to say I believe something or not believe something, right? Why can't we just say nothing and just absorb the information? That sounds fair to me, but for some reason, we expect people to take a side and defend a position, and that's something I didn't want to do. Um, and then later on, I started, I guess, drifting towards more of this idea of the soul body existing. I do think that it is still in the realm to a lot of people, in the realm of like spirituality and religion. I do think there is a scientific explanation. We just lack the science to define it. I think that's just everything. Arthur C. Clarke, the old quote that says, any insufficiently advanced any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And so I think, what we're seeing when it comes to the afterlife or the soul, it feels like magic, it feels paranormal, but it does definitely have an explanation, just not quite one that we're ready to, with our knowledge, accept. So I guess where I stand is encourage people not to believe anything, and by that it doesn't mean to not believe something. Just stop this idea of believing and not believing. Let's just,
Okay.
it's so binary.
I
It's
like
like
that.
one or the other. We don't need it. We can do away with it. It doesn't matter what I believe. It doesn't matter. Like it shouldn't matter objectively to the truth. It doesn't matter. It's an opinion and it's subjective, right? So why are we even giving it any weight or any part in the conversation? It should be completely extracted. I think what we should be doing is just absorbing information, creating a judgment-free environment to have these conversations so that we can just intake more information. And that, the second you put up some type of bias, you're going to filter some of that information. Some of that information might not even be shared with you because of your bias, right? So all that does is this belief stuff, it distances you from more information. So let's collect, let's catalog, and let's remain low conviction across the board. And then let's find points of connection, much like what you guys are doing. Read all the stuff, absorb the stuff, and then find the points that stick out. And people say, well, I don't believe this guy when he talks, or I don't believe that guy. Listen to it anyways. Because whether it's
Amen.
just because it's the truth or just because it's a lie doesn't make it any less valuable. it's still information, right? And a lie can be a valuable piece of information too. So absorb everything and just, don't settle on an idea just yet. Hypothesize, theorize, get ideas out there. But before you commit, just make sure you fully have that answer, I guess, which I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say there's a reason people believe what they believe in. And I'm intentionally interested in belief systems, why people believe what they believe. Ironically, I feel like 2,000 years ago, that's mainly what Jesus was trying to say, is that you don't need a middleman. You can have a personal relationship with your creator and kind of build your own understanding of the universe. And how ironic is it that Christianity became this heavily institutionalized religion, very rigid in what you can and can't believe. But what we do here on this channel is we read all the books, we compile them all together and try to extrapolate what fragments of truth are kind of shared between all of these. What are the origins of these belief systems, and what are the results that you get out of seeing the world from this perspective? But that's the funnest part of this, and I really do appreciate what you're doing as well, because you're kind of doing the same thing, getting people to expand their minds and to be able to use your imagination to have a broader perspective of what the universe could hold.
That's right. Absolutely. Well said.
Heck yeah, brother.
This is one of the funnest conversations I've had. I'll let you know. I'll tell you that.
That's good to
Oh,
hear.
dude, sweet.
Yeah. I usually get the same old,
Yeah.
same old topics. You guys are cool. We got to mind meld and get out there a little bit more.
When
and
you started
I
talking
do
about Journey of Souls, I could tell you were like into it. You're the mutual inspiration was flowing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's we got past all the surface stuff and we're able to get a little deeper. So that's always cool.
In the training.
Heck yeah. Yeah, we got to do it again sometime, man. I'll keep
Absolutely.
in contact.
And yeah, feel free to hop by my Discord as well. We got a pop in Discord over there. We got a
Alright.
whole bunch of things going on. So if you guys are ever looking for a conversation, we're always hanging out there too.
Alrighty. I'm looking outside of the window of the TR3B right now, coming up on Tejon Ranch. We're going to land right here. And I think finally the journey is over. Chris Ramsay, thanks for joining us. I appreciate you giving us some of your time. Area 52, Planetary HQ. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you liked what we were talking about. Stay tuned for future episodes. Sayonara.
Planetary HQ, baby.
Mic check 1 2.
Had to set the mood.
Ooh,
RGB.
All right. You ready, Taylor?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm recording.